victory in September for the Detroit Lions. This is a feeling I haven't had in a minute. This feels good. This is nice. This is nice. It's nice and warm. Welcome to the Pride of Detroit PODcast, prideofdetroit.com, Pride of Detroit on Twitter, Pride of Detroit on Facebook. We say it every week. You know where to find us. We're here. We're here. ISB right here, homie. And we are live on twitch.tv/Pride of Detroit. Get the PODcast every Monday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio. Oh, geez. Am I forgetting anything? iTunes, Speaker. I said Spotify already. Okay, whatever. You know where you get podcasts. I'm Chris Perfett, the delirious adequate host and multimedia editor of Pride of Detroit, at Chris Perfett on Twitter. Wow, we've had a lot to celebrate today, and we're going to just celebrate it even more as we break down all of what happened in the Lions' first win of the year, and it comes in week 2, which means the Lions are 500. Lions 500, baby. Let's bring in the crew. Jeremy Reisman, fearless leader, the producer, editor-in-chief of Pride of Detroit. Jeremy, taking the shirt off.
You take my shirt off?
No, I'm saying you are you. Okay, never mind.
I mean, I might. I feel that good, honestly, about this game because, there was so much cynicism going into this game. People are already trying to call this a must-win game, and I think maybe for some Lions fans it was kind of a must-win for them, not for the team, because I don't care if you start 0-2 and only 10% or whatever, make the playoffs. Like, they were going to be fine, but it felt like if they were going into that Minnesota game 0-2, some Lions fans would really lose faith in the ship. And listen, I don't know how they could have gone out and earned some more trust, earned some more faith in this regime after maybe one of the best halves of football I've ever seen out of this football team.
Well, it's funny because we'll talk about that half in a second because I know exactly who you're talking about, those people, but those people were also nitpicking,
Sure.
Kind of as I was a little bit, but I was doing it as a critique, but they were absolutely doomer that this game was lost because of the points left out there and something the Commanders are charging back. For them, the game was already over and the Lions were already 0-2, so they were doing it in game too. It's there's no winning with this crowd. It's a tough crowd, but hey, at least we're not the Denver Broncos where our fans are apparently calling the counting down the play clock for their own team. That happened to
some teams need a little extra help.
The Lions don't need that help, but we need the help from the third man, the man, Ryan Matthews, senior editor at Ryan_POD. Ryan, buddy, you feeling all right?
Yeah, I'm feeling fine. The only thing higher than my temperature was the scoring in the second half. No, that's not true.
This was a high-scoring game. The Lions have now, for the first time since the 1950s, had 3 games straight going back to last year of 35-plus. That hasn't happened since 1952.
I think that's right, yeah.
Last time the Lions won an NFL championship.
And anytime, well, that's not the last. 57 was the last time, but
oh yeah, that's right.
But yeah, I mean, anytime you're talking about records that go back to the 1950s, like, oh, okay, something good might actually be happening now.
Yeah. Speaking of a bunch of records that was broken too, we've got one. We're going to get to our player nods and critiques later, but one guy we will talk off the top just broke a bunch of records. But first, we're going to start, as always, with the monologues. I think I know where I'll go with mine, but since I had the post game, I feel like Jeremy and Ryan should lead off the top here, getting into this. So, Jeremy, your main takeaway, your column, your spicy hot take column, your column for Monday is what on this game?
There are about 10 different awesome stories from this game, but while driving home from the game, this one dawned on me. The Detroit Lions have stars. They have star players. And they came up in the biggest times for this game. And that's something that's the missing piece that we've been talking about for so long. They've got some of these depth pieces. They've got guys that are okay. They don't have star pieces. So when your running game starts to struggle in the second half, I don't know, just hand it off to Amon-Ra and he'll take it for 50 yards. When you're facing a 3rd and 15 and it looks like your offense is going to settle for another field goal, I don't know, dump it off to DeAndre Swift and see what he can do. When your defense needs a play, Aiden freaking Hutchinson will get you 3 sacks and a half. This team has guys who can go up and make plays when they need to on both sides of the ball, too. Malcolm Rodriguez continues to play his ass off. And so now I'm starting to get a little too excited about this team because we're talking about all these offensive weapons, and DJ Chark hasn't really broken out yet. TJ Hockenson has kind of been a forgotten guy. And there's a little guy named Jameson Williams who's starting to run and cut on the practice field, who's going to be ready in about a month or two, who's going to bring a whole new dimension to an offense that has scored 35 points in 2 straight games without him. Someone talk me down because I'm feeling pretty damn good about this team right now.
I wouldn't call them stars, but I did say in the post game the Lions leaned on their playmakers to win this game. And all those guys you mentioned are their playmakers. And that's been a minute since I think we've been able to say that about the Lions.
Yeah, absolutely. And
like everyone came in the clutch.
Man. Like
everyone came in the clutch.
There are going to be some players that win. You know, Aiden Hutchinson's probably going to win Defensive Player of the Week, and you know, Amon-Ra might win Offensive Player of the Week. Like we're going to have guys win awards and eventually make some Pro Bowls. And I mean, that's not even like I'm sorry. I'll move on because there's another thing I want to talk about, but that's my really excited. I'm feeling really good about this team takeaway from Sunday.
I guess we're gonna do roles reversed. I'll be the wet blanket.
Oh,
go ahead. I think there was some bad from this game too. This was a mixed bag of a game. A lot to be excited about, some concerns. So please, want to hear them.
Yeah. I mean, the first half was incredible, right? I mean, I don't think you could ask much more from both sides of the ball. But then you got towards the end of that first half and into the beginning of the second half, and the Lions had 4 drives where they had 14 plays. 3 of them were 3 and outs. One of them was 5 plays, and then they were done.
Punts on all of them too, on that 5-play drive too. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just a little bit wary. I'm a little bit concerned of this offense's ability to sustain itself for an entire game. I think that there's a major concern with Jared Goff, like a huge concern. And I think you can look at the box score and you can say, oh, he threw for 4 touchdowns. How many touchdowns or how many first downs did he leave out on the field? I mean, how many did he get away with in terms of interceptions that he could have thrown? I think that there were at least a couple throws that could have been Washington's ball and could have changed the entire complexion of this game. And that is my one huge concern about the ceiling for this team is their quarterback play. And I know that might be putting the cart before the horse because there's so many good things that came of this game. I don't think I've seen a defensive first half from the Lions like that since 2014.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been almost a decade since we've seen something like that. And I'm right there with Jeremy. Like there are star players on this team. There are. I just know for a fact that they don't have a star quarterback, and that limits the ceiling for this team.
Help me out, Jeremy, because I agree with Ryan for a large degree because as Ryan says, I feel confused by the stat line looking after it because it's a good stat line, but at the same time, like what he's talking about, it's the concern I had last week where the Lions had several 3 and outs where they forced the defense to stand on their heads and the defense couldn't hold. And I think that goes back to some of the negativity I was seeing around halftime because what Ryan is saying is true. They had that one drive that should have really been, a touchdown and just was botched up. And then they had they decided to go for it on 4th down, which could have probably been at a point where I don't think you should have left points on the field. So there was a lot of cases where you could probably make the case that the Lions go in almost close to 30 points at the half. And then, you come out, Washington responds right away, and the Lions offense response is very flat. Now they get it back together near the end, but there's some of those risky throws he was talking about. There was a throw to DJ Chark in double coverage, I believe. That was Chark. I think that was credited as a drop for Chark, but it was a whole bunch of a mess. But like Goff played fine, but it's clear that to Ryan's point, there's some situations where he just might put this team in trouble going forward.
Again, like if you're box score watching, yes, Jared Goff had 4 touchdowns. One of those touchdowns was completely because of DeAndre Swift. Like, come on.
Yeah. All right, Let me. I feel like we might have to cut out a segment for Goff every week because this is going to be a hot topic. And rightfully
we'll
so.
mix it
Like
up.
we're talking about the
It has
future.
to be though.
Right.
It's the team's quarterback. It is the most, as much as I hate it, is the most important player on the field, the engine that drives everything else around the game.
Here's the thing about Jared Goff. He left a lot of opportunities out there in the first half. No question about it. They had a 3rd down and a 4th down in the red zone that should have been 7. He missed on both passes. He had a deep shot at the end of the first half when the line stayed aggressive and had, I don't remember who it was, but he overshot him.
It was TJ Shark, I think, down the left sideline.
Yeah, right sideline to me. But either way, but here's the thing. Jared Goff was electric in the 4th quarter. Electric. The Lions had a possession where they absolutely positively needed to score, and guess what? The running game was not working in the second half. Washington had wised up. It wasn't working. The only real good run play that they had in the entire second half was an end around to Amon-Ra that went for 50. They were finding themselves into a lot of third and 8s, 3rd and 7s, 3rd and 10s, things like that, and they didn't have an answer because honestly, like as good as the offensive line was, which is another storyline we absolutely need to hit, they weren't great in pass protection on this game. But this 4th quarter drive that put the Lions up, I'm trying to find the exact score it was. Whatever. Either way, he went 4 for 4 on that drive and was just absolutely perfect with each throw. He threw it to TJ Hawkinson, who made a nice diving grab. He threw it up the seam to Brock Wright, and maybe what was one of the best throws I've seen him make. And then he threw an out route to Amon-Ra for a touchdown. And I've been the one slamming the dude who can't throw an out route because he seems to overthrow every single one to TJ Hawkinson. But he just absolutely dialed in a laser to him. 4 for 4 for like 70 yards on that drive alone when the Lions 1,000% needed it. They don't win that game without that drive. And so, yeah, Jared Goff is probably the reason why they weren't up 35-0 in the first half. But he's also the reason why, despite the defense starting to show some cracks, they didn't end up losing that game. So, yeah, it's weird to say that I don't think he was very good in the first half, and I thought he was pretty damn good in the second half when the scores were kind of flip-flopped. You know, they're up 22-0 in the first half. They do a lot better in the second half, but I think that's how it played out. I think he came out in the clutch, and listen, if the rest of your team is carrying you the rest of the way and then you come through in the clutch, I'm okay with that. Is it going to win? Is it, you know, we can talk about whether that means he's going to be a quarterback who win this team a Super Bowl down the line. And yeah, no, he needs to be a lot cleaner in the middle of the game to do that. But for right now, for what this team is, and for an opponent like Washington, he did his job. And so I'm not hating him on today.
So I think that goes to your point, though, Jeremy, about the Lions having star players, because, I mean, they don't win this game without Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Sure.
They don't win this game without DeAndre Swift. And those guys made huge plays when they really needed it. I mean, if that end around to Amon-Ra doesn't happen, I mean, I know you don't believe in momentum at all whatsoever, but I mean, that crowd at Ford Field, like you could hear like just how deflated they were.
Sure.
And I mean, if that play doesn't happen, I don't know what happens. But so if it's not so much Jared Goff, then the other thing that I have is takeaway, because I mean, this has happened for 2 straight games now where the offense has gone through a lull, and to call it a lull is insulting to lulls, right? Like, I mean,
but
like
it isn't. I mean, this team has also scored 35 points in back-to-back games.
It is, okay, I get that, but at the same time, I'm already getting frustrated with the play calling of run pass, and getting into those traps. So I'm a little bit concerned with the play calling too. So
I don't think I could disagree more, honestly. Like, I thought the play calling was fantastic. I thought they were aggressive, overly aggressive at times. Like, the fact that this team was up 22-0 and the clock is running out in the first half, and they're like, oh, no, we're taking one more shot at this.
No, I'm fine with that. Yeah, contextually speaking, I'm talking about, like, just, like, drive design. Like, I don't know why they're so fine with 4 yards on first down, and then we're going to run the ball again. Like,
I guess I don't feel like it was that much of a repeat. Like, they kept doing that. I don't know. Maybe they did. Maybe they didn't. There was definitely one drive where they did run pass, but I feel like that wasn't a habitual problem.
I think we just feel it a little bit harsher when it does turn into that the lull that Ryan is talking about, where you do get those three straight three and outs.
The 3 and outs have to
5 yard.
stop. No question.
Well,
Like
yeah,
that's the thing. Like when you're in a lull, and it's not just you aren't finishing drives. It's 3 and outs. There's been like the Lions 3 and out percentage is definitely unacceptably high right now.
right.
That I can agree with.
And it's felt more though when it turns into those situations where the defense have to stand on their head, and this team is not, as much as they have a guy like Aiden Hutchinson, they're not skilled enough to stand on their heads that long. Like, props to Jeff Okudah. He put Terry McLaurin in a box all day long. But Curtis Samuel got loose. Curtis Samuel got loose a few times, and he made the Lions pay for it. So,
I can hear it.
Okay. It's a plane or something. It's a helicopter or something. Hold on. I think, though, I wonder if that's just kind of the natural progression of football games, if every team goes through it, or if we're just, again, like, I think it's a good critique all the same. Like, you want consistency out of your drives.
And I'm not saying score a touchdown on every drive. I'm not saying every drive should result in points, but at the same time,
because they do that too.
Just don't keep having all these 3 and outs.
That's fair. But it's nitpicky.
Okay, that's fine.
Jesus. Ring the bells. Since then, I feel like both of you kind of hit on my points from the post game, so I want to give, and I'm jumping the gun on I want to jump the gun on one of the players, because you talk about stars, Jeremy. I don't think there's a bigger one than this. And I'll go ahead and say it right now, as I look at the records being broken by this guy, and I'm not just being the USC homer. This is real. This is insane. That 8+ games. I mean, 8 straight games, more than 8 receptions. I think 9 in this game, 6 straight games with 8+ receptions and a touchdown, 2 touchdowns today. 3rd wide receiver in NFL history to produce a game with 100 receiving yards, 2 receiving touchdowns, and 50 rushing yards, joining only 2 other people, Joey Galloway and Javon Walker, 95, 2006. There. I was talking about this with one of my friends who produces for national radio, and we were kind of sizing it up. There is a good chance when this year is done, we are talking about Amon-Ra St. Brown as a top 5 wide receiver.
Oh, boy.
I'm being hot takey here, but I swear to God, if he keeps on this trajectory, because you have Chase, Kupp,
Jefferson,
and one more that's skipping my mind right now. I don't know. My brain's bad. You know this about me, but the way he's producing right now, the Lions have something insanely special with him. And it's come on, like, what is going on right now? You want to talk about stars? Like, there's no bigger star than Amon-Ra St. Brown. Oh, Adams was the other one I was thinking of. So Jefferson, Adams, Kupp, and Chase, and then maybe up there, St. Brown.
I'm not ready to do that, but the man is electric with the ball in his hands. He is such a weapon that, I mean, we saw towards the end of last year, like at the end of that run he had in 2021, they started to just use him as a decoy and as a weapon. And that's what makes him so special, I think, because today, and he said it, they put him in motion almost every single play he was out there because they're trying to draw eyes, right? And sometimes they did draw eyes. Sometimes he'll take an end around and the safety doesn't know where the hell the ball is, and he'll run in the wrong direction. But having a guy like that is so beneficial, not just because of all the records he's breaking, not just because of all the stats that he's making, because he lifts, he rises the tide. He lifts all boats. He makes everyone else a much better weapon because he is going to draw so much attention away from him. And man,
Dan Campbell praised him on run blocking, called him a pit bull that was a wide receiver.
Listen,
like, he's doing everything out there for you.
Yes, and that's the sort of thing that trickles down too, right? If you see a wide receiver like that working his ass off on a run play, it's contagious. And we saw it like last week, I should say. The Lions wide receivers had collectively one of the best run grade PFF grades I've ever seen for run blocking. And listen, I know that's not sexy. I know people don't care about that, not necessarily, but you know what they say about wide receivers blocking. Here's what they say: they turn good runs into huge runs. And if there's one thing that the Lions can say through 2 games, they have had a lot of explosive plays on the ground so far this year. So thank your nearest wide receiver for that, because the Lions wide receivers are putting in work, and Amon-Ra is just the poster child of that.
Yeah, I bow before the sun god. I bow before his greatness. It's amazing. This is a great weekend in general for USC wide receivers. I was watching.
Okay,
Drake
so you are
London.
being a USC homer.
No, I'm not. I could bring up how USC had St. Brown, London, and Michael Pittman on the same roster and one Jack, but I won't do that. I won't get off my angst here. Instead, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about all the other elite performances out of this game, both good and bad. And we've got to give a huge shout out to a man who stepped up, who was one of the tearjerker stories of Hard Knocks, and a man who, even in his press conference today afterwards, brought a bit of a tear to my eye, because the man has really seen some things and just bulldozed his way through it. And once again, more love for DeAndre Swift we got to talk about. We'll do all that when we come back on the Pride of Detroit POD cast.